Sharon Kelly.
Here.
Tracy LeBlanc.
Here.
Doug Rowdy.
Here.
Pam Garvey.
Here.
And Justin Wood.
Here.
Everybody's present.
Number 3, approval of the agenda.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Second.
Sharon, Pam. Anybody see any changes or anything? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes from our last meeting, March 5th. Anybody see any corrections or anything?
Nope, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Tracy,
I'll second it.
Sharon. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Comment, we do not have anybody here. No other supervisors are here. So we're at number 7. Eric is presenting that to us.
So at one of the last meetings, thought when there was interest in the governor's budget and potentially putting together a resolution to support increasing base funding for county conservation staff. So in your packet, there's a resolution that kind of speaks for itself if you were able to get through it. The proposal is to increase base funding to $2 million. Currently, the base funding for county conservation staff, which are land and water resources in all 72 counties. The current base funding is 8.9 million. So that's the bottom end that of funding you get. And then legislature will approve, one-time increases each year. And in 2025, that one-time increase bumped that funding to 11.2 million. And the sheet that I provided you has a little bit of that background on the back and some supporting information on what this is hoping to accomplish. So based on all of the staffing grants from water resource departments, there's a need that has been, developed through those staffing grants. And that total comes to 20.2 million. So that's what's been proposed to present. And Wisconsin Land Plus Water Association and other counties and Wisconsin Counties Association and things like that are coming together to try and lobby for support for that base funding amount. So appreciate the interest in increasing or supporting the increase in staffing funding statewide. And I can take any other questions, but a resolution sent to Land Plus Water and the legislature would be much appreciated to share Polk County support for that staffing increase.
This is from other counties too, isn't it?
Yeah, it'd be
Trying to get a lot of counties to do the same one.
Yep. Yeah, that was a template resolution that was provided by our Wisconsin Land and Water Association. And there are other counties, doing things to present their support on this. Resolutions, op-eds, some are even, testifying. So there's a lot of activity towards this proposal.
Is the blue line on this actual cost?
So that is based on the need that
The need,
has been
yeah.
identified by all of the counties in the state to support staffing.
Yeah.
And that breakdown is staffing support for 100% of one position,
Okay,
70% of a second position, and then 50% staffing support for all the other positions within each county.
okay,
So for us, I'm just working on the staffing grant right now for 2026. And after this meeting, I'll send that off. But our request to cover all of what I just listed is about 312,000. 337, I think. So if this initiative were to come to fruition and that 20.2 million approved, it's likely in 2026, Polk County would receive that entire 312,000 for staff support in our department.
All right, and then this goes, do we send that Wisconsin County Association? I see their deadline is coming up.
Yes,
Is it-
I take care of that. I send all lobbying resolutions every year by June.
Okay, I
Yeah,
just seen it was in the county's book
Yep.
that came out.
I do that every year.
You do that every year? Okay.
this resolution would get sent to state legislatures, the governor, DADCAP secretary, DNR secretary, DOA secretary, counties association, and the towns association. That's written in the resolution.
Just
All right.
curious.
Just
Just curious as far as how all these come together. So if you were to get the full 20.2 million, what, does the grants go away? I mean, sometimes it just kind of blows my mind, the fact that we have this operating budget and then everybody has to apply for grants. So there's still money coming from somewhere, from the federal government, state government, whatever. So how does this ever does it ever offset the grants? Like, no, this is what we take to run the county and free up time and not gaming is not the right word, but all the application process for grants, it's kind of mind blowing. But so what would happen to if it was fully funded, what would happen to grants? Would that just kind of go away because you wouldn't need, or you would say you would still want grants for the other 50%, the other 70% or 30%?
That's a great question. We would always still apply for this grant. We would also still apply for grants through DNR and other DADCAP funding sources. What this would do would take pressure off the levy. So we would be more, we would be funded at a higher level from our state staffing grant off the levy funds.
For the county, doesn't mean that was still went in some way that to your taxes,
Yeah.
other ways, as far as, like I said, sometimes it's just interesting because money is money, but then it's crazy sometimes the things that you have to go through.
And it's
So,
all
thank you.
coming from the same place, us.
Right. Yeah, it's just how it,
How it
How it
gets.
gets
the
you.
shell game keeps
Yeah.
going around. So.
All right, yes.
Right now, they've been typically providing enough funding for about 1.7
Okay.
staff.
And that's base or that's with grant writing?
That's this funding only.
Okay.
Okay,
The
so.
11.2 million or
A
whatever.
staffing
Okay.
grant at Department of Ag, Trade and Consumer Protection. So that amount is about 150 to 165,000 a
Okay.
year.
Okay.
So
To Polk County.
to
Two
Polk,
Polk, yeah, so it would over double.
this would, in simpler terms, double our staffing grant support from the state potentially.
But that would almost be like an automatic versus applying for additional grant money. That's like, that would be a base in essence, as far as when you're doing budgeting or whatever. It's like, you have this much money coming in.
We have to apply for this funding each year through the staffing grant process, but it's.
It's an automatic almost.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep. Won't say it's an automatic at that amount,
Sure.
but it's likely we're gonna get a sizable amount of money each year from the staffing group.
Thank you. And I apologize if I should understand all that, but.
Oh, that's,
I mean, just appreciate.
I appreciate the question.
Nobody does. It's that bad. All right, any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to move this to the full board
I motion. Second it.
Recommendations?
with recommendation.
To approve. Yes. And wouldn't it be to the consent agenda? Sorry, I'm gonna edit your
Yeah.
motion.
Consent agenda. Oh, yeah, there you
It
go.
can be. Can it
Oh, yeah.
all? Okay, yeah.
With that edit.
Good catch.
Thank you very much.
I got a second. So all those in favor then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so then we just make sure we get signatures today on that. So when it goes in, we have it. in the packet? Okay. Would this go with it too, maybe? Zoning board packet?
We can supply that to each member of the board if you.
I think so.
Okay.
To help explain it. Thank you.
Then you can't discuss it.
All right, number 8.
You didn't hear it? Mhm.
Number 8 is the other,
Yes.
Resolution.
Tim will talk about the.
Mm.
okay, and now this is the same one that we did in 2023.
Very similar. Yep. Mhm.
Okay, so it's just updating it.
Basically, yeah. So for those of you that aren't familiar, this is another proposal from the governor's office in the upcoming biennium budget to change how real estate transaction or transfer fees are handled in terms of funding going to the state versus the county. Right now, the county is keeping 20% of those funds and the state is keeping 80% of those funds. The proposal as it sits right now would, over time, through the year 2026, adjust those towards a 50-50 balance between the state and the county. Currently, also in the proposal, the real estate transaction fees or transfer fees are at 3% for $1,000 of valuation on a property. This proposal would drop that to 2% per thousand. So a little concession, I guess, for adjusting those fees downward a little bit. Another proposal that was in this realm was to update the recording fees from $30 to $45, but we've heard a resounding saying, nope, that's not going to pass. So this is another proposal to try to get some additional funding for this segment of county operations. So let's see here. Like Kim said, this is very similar to what was done back in 2023. So what we heard when we were at the Wisconsin Land Information Association conference is that this has a much higher possibility of passing than the recording fee increase. And so we're trying to gather support for the adjustment. As you can see in the resolution, some significant funds through the real estate transaction fees over the last 5 years. So if this change happens or is adopted at the state level, it could mean some significant funding back to the county. And as we sit in tough funding times, any bit we can get back would be helpful. So. No, it's
That was
not.
that 5-year total on that one, wasn't it?
Yes.
Or 4-year total.
That's a lot.
But it would still be, yeah, it would still be 2 million over the same amount of time, 500,000 a year.
Yeah. So if you reduce it from the 3% to 2%, I did some rough math. Obviously, we can't guarantee it because we don't know how many
Yeah,
real estate transfer fees are going to actually happen or processing. But it would be like 150 to 200K annually. So.
well, with inflation, the price of everything's up, so that 2% is higher too, so.
So you mentioned the fee from 3% to 2%, but I don't see that in this resolution.
No, it's not.
It's in the state budget, isn't it? Fun.
Yeah.
Did it need
Yeah,
to?
it's not in there.
Yeah, this is just a supporting resolution for adjusting those fees. I mean, if we want to. Good. I didn't.
No, I mean, because you mentioned that, I was
Yep.
thinking it was part of it. And I'm just saying, I don't see it.
But yeah, it's just about,
I think that was part of the governor's deal, wasn't it? If you get a little bit more, they're still taking their big share.
Sure.
as the resolution notes a long time ago, it was a 50-50 split, but that changed in the 80s. So it's been that way for a long time now. So, yeah, I think it would just be a helpful thing for the county to have additional increase in funds and obviously for the land acquisition side of things, which, you know, what we've demonstrated through the beacon site and now we have a LiDAR viewer, like the use of what we do for the county is not going down and the use of that by the public is not going down. So anything we can do to keep funding and be able to increase what we do in those realms would be super helpful. Question?
Okay, any other questions?
That would be handy.
It's not gonna happen.
What's that?
Yeah, cut the state out of all of it and just
Yeah.
keep it all.
Good luck. Yeah, got to stay out. Can we cut
What
the
value,
fence too?
what
Look at
value,
all the money
what
we
value
got.
do they add?
Some of this money funds the the land information program. So keeping some of those funds back at the state helps distribute those funds to all counties. So sometimes, counties that have more wealthy individuals or higher property taxes have more money. So it helps distribute those funds throughout all the state of Wisconsin so that everybody gets the same type of, aerial photography or those kind of things. Just an FYI.
All right, anyone? We good? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll entertain a motion to put this on the consent agenda.
To move forward to the county board on the consent agenda.
Yes.
Approval?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give it. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second it. Okay. All right, all those in favor then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Excellent. Thank you.
so we'll make sure we sign that one too. And
Yeah.
checks off. Okay. Who is running this? Mr. Hobbs? Are you doing number 9 for us?
Just here to answer questions.
Oh, geez.
So
Here we go.
the public nuisance ordinance discussion, I think, was brought forward. Chairman O'Connell asked to discuss it because there are pieces of the ordinance that are impacted or that impact the zoning department. The thought is, and Brian, you can jump in here too, but the thought is to, from HHS to work to kind of dissolve the ordinance due to duplication. Everything within this ordinance is duplicated in a different area of governance in a different ordinance. So Brian, do you want to talk about or go through the different, I did make a copy of the ordinance for everyone. And you can see on page 16, the crossover things that are covered in each of the public nuisance. Do you want a copy of this too, Brian? You're good? He's got it all submitted to memory.
Yeah, sorry, I used to.
Mr. Hobbs, everyone.
Yeah, my name is Brian Hobbs, Public Health Department. I'm an environmental health sanitarian, so I would be the one that deals with all the human health hazard portions of what used to be 2-00 done in 2000, our human health hazard ordinance. It was changed when we recodified. It's 16 something now, but it all transferred over. So I can give you a real brief history if you want. Back, I believe in 1995, when this was enacted, there was no environmental health program at the county. There was the health department and they had a health board at that time. They were starting to deal with a lot of questions from the public as how to deal with garbage houses and noise and dogs and all kinds of stuff. So at that time, there was nothing in place. So I believe Robert Hatchie was the corp counsel at that time, and he worked with the health board to come up with just kind of a generic ordinance at that time to try and at least have a starting place for the public when they make complaints. Most of those complaints went to the local townships at that time. The town chair had the ability to write their own ordinances and to follow through. Most of them knew the people in their townships that they're having problems with, and they kind of handled it on that end. In 2000, the health department took a more active role and they put forth the human health hazard ordinance. And in that became all of the rules and regulations that we have as a local ordinance that is enforceable through the health department or me, the environmental health program, to deal with many of those things that and beyond what were in that initial ordinance. Okay. What we have found over the years, because we didn't dissolve that first ordinance that was very generic, is that the zoning and the health department took into account all of the major aspects that we could enforce, and anything that was still left in that ordinance was really unenforceable. Because when you start dealing with some of the terms in there that talk about things that are not measurable, it's very hard for us to do an enforcement. Take noise, for instance. A noise complaint out in the country is very different than a noise complaint in Amory downtown, right? And noise complaints are generally dealt with by the sheriff's department under their statutory authority as
Disorderly.
a disorderly conduct, or however they want to move forward with that. So
that initial ordinance back from 95, as far as I know, and I've been here 25 years now, as far as I know, we have never once used that ordinance in any enforcement. Because it's either unmeasurable, there's no standards in place, or the things that would be are already taken into account with zoning, health department that we already deal with. So the only thing that ordinance right now is doing is causing confusion to the public. Because if they go out and they Google and they put in nuisance because they don't like the way their neighbor's house looks for any reason, they're gonna find that, it's gonna pop up, and they're gonna make a complaint to us, and then we're gonna say, we really don't have enforcement over those things. If it's in human health hazard or zoning, then we do, but really, we've never used that ordinance.
So you've never used this ordinance, this section 22,
Right.
is what you're saying, but you are still enforcing under current other ordinances.
Absolutely, yes.
And those other ordinances are current and active and
And we have citation authority to those ordinances, not to this one. So if somebody is uncompliant, we can actually write a fine before we send it through for court injunction through court counsel. So we do have authority under that ordinance as well as zoning, but not with this one.
you have done all those things as far as citations and everything other, under the other ordinance.
Absolutely.
So then it's just saying take away section 22(1). So it just goes away.
This ordinance too,
Yeah,
it's all
this
ordinance.
Yeah.
Correct.
So then you'd have
Oh, the
21,
enforcement too.
20,
Yeah,
and 23, all three of those.
yeah.
And penalties.
Because the penalties, everything are in all the other ordinances with citation power, is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
And the sheriff's department will have their own.
And the towns, some of the towns have their
Have
own
some,
too.
absolutely.
Well, the towns have to do the dogs, the
Mhm.
town chair and different things too,
Mhm.
so. All right. So my big question is, we pull this out, Joe. I'm gonna go to Joe for a second. Do you think we should hold a public hearing to let the public know that this is out of there?
Certainly can. Nothing says that you can't have a public hearing on it, but
You don't think
Because
it's required to take an ordinance because it's part zoning, part health? It's kind of, and it's
zoning has taken,
substantial rewrite. We have to. This is taking it out.
zoning has taken parts of it on within their own zoning ordinances, but this ordinance in and of itself is not a zoning ordinance. It's a nuisance ordinance, which is entirely
Just-
different. So
Do you think for clarity, if we had a public hearing?
public hearing would cover
Probably
you.
help
Public hearing would cover you one way or another. It would make the public aware
that,
that, hey, you're supposed to be looking here and here as opposed to. in
but like this even
chapter
says there's spots where you call the DNR. I mean, if there's a boat at the end of your dock, they don't like the person.
It would give people an opportunity to come and say why they think this
Is good.
should remain. But again, I don't think it's necessary, but you certainly can have a public.
Okay, well, we'll ask the committee, but I mean, I would like, it's mostly health and human services if they had that.
So if you remove this section, basically you'd be removing chapter 22 in
Yeah.
essence. If you remove that, then is there like an asterisk somewhere saying that you would put in here saying this has now been moved to, I mean, just, or do you do that in ordinances as far as if everybody's used to going to look there, how do they know to look somewhere else? Because that would be, to me, that would be the first pushbacks like, oh, now we don't have a nuisance ordinance. What,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so is there a way that a layperson could go in and would it still just pop up? It's a question.
If they look for nuisance,
Right.
would it direct them to the other one?
I believe that once it was codified, and Joe, you can help me with that, I believe that changes would have to be made someplace else.
You could leave chapter 22 and instead of completely removing chapter 22, you could basically just have something that says,
Refer to.
right, it's been recodified into chapter 16 and
Then they could take these gray and put by each line of where to look.
Well, or, but just even the simple statement that it's been recodified to,
Yeah.
codified to HHS 16 and whatever. I mean,
That
not
was
that,
simple.
not that I really even need it.
Looks at it and Googles the word or searches the word.
So it would go there, and then zoning has one, and then the sheriff and DNR. So there'd be 4 places to look.
Most people that are.
They just leave the heading maybe.
No, it'd be the one
That
that's
would
done.
make sense, huh?
It's just a question
Because it would be good to know who to call.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's a lot of non-emergency calls that, you know, you get the weird ones.
I forward those right to you, Kim.
I know.
But if there is no section called nuisance in
Yeah.
our ordinances,
Yeah,
the way the site is set up is you can search, if I'm looking for animal something, I can just search that and it'll show you everywhere that term comes up. So if you have a concern and you're looking for it in the ordinances, if there isn't even a section called nuisance, you're not gonna go to the section called nuisance because it's not there.
yeah, that's right.
true.
Yeah.
Junkyard,
Right. You type that in and it'll show you everywhere the word junkyard shows.
Comes in. So maybe just get rid of it totally.
That's how I use it.
Okay.
I don't have these memorized, so it's a pretty intuitive system. If it's not there, people aren't gonna look for it.
Or they'll call.
They'll come.
That's a
And they
lot.
still do because they don't want to look it up either. That's a lot of it. So what do you think? That we throw it to HHS and have a public hearing, just to be safe to get rid of it? So the public for notification,
Do we need it?
we don't need
We
it, but
don't need it.
I know we don't, but I haven't, it hasn't been out there long enough to get it. I haven't got too much blowback. I got a little bit. But I don't want to say it on camera when I got it from. To open up that door. But I don't know. I think changing an ordinance or taking one out that we should almost have a public hearing and be safe. I don't know what HS thinks, but
There has been talk over the years of making a nuisance ordinance by other board members.
Yep.
And we've talked about that. In fact, we've done a lot of the homework on that and a lot of the back on it. The problem we have with nuisance ordinances at the county level is that the county is so diverse. It's easy to put in decibel levels for noise or times when dogs can bark or how many refrigerators you can have in your yard. But the problem is it's really different depending on your township. Lorraine is going to be very different than Amory or Osceola. So
Yeah.
we've always kind of left that in the end, even after doing all that homework, it kind of comes back to the local jurisdictions, the municipalities, the townships, the villages that make up those rules based on their own entity, and they can do enforcement, whatever they want to do, whether it's citation or court orders, anything they want to do. So, over the years, we've done it many times and it just keeps going back to that. So the only thing I worry about with a public hearing is all of a sudden everybody's light's going to turn on and they're going to say, oh, nuisance. I'm so angry. I'm fighting with my neighbors all the time. This is going to take care of it. And now we're back in that same thing with spending a lot of the county's money trying to come up with an ordinance that just hasn't worked in the past because things are not really measurable either.
Yep.
How far away from the property before you say it's noisy? At the door, at the street, at the property line? We've really found it difficult to measure for enforcement to be consistent.
okay.
So that's just my thoughts.
Well, do we run it by your committee too or not, or just? We can recommend either way. I guess as a committee, what do we think?
If you take out number 22, do you have to renumber the whole order, the whole thing, or is 22 just missing?
We have missing chapters. We don't have chapter 15. There's sections and chapters that are reserved for, hey, if you want to put something in here, you can. So it wouldn't.
It's okay if it disappears.
Like you said, we open up a bigger door. If we do have a public, I just thought maybe,
Well, if people call, you can answer the question. If they call and say, I'm looking for nuisance, what do I do? And I can't find anything.
well, I just thought for transparency to open that door or not.
Yeah.
That was my thought. I had a few people that asked some really weird shit about it, so I just.
Well, you're not making it more restrictive. You're actually opening it up. Well, you're not.
We're not changing anything.
It's just a moot point.
Almost, it is. It's taken out, like it said, the abandoned vehicles doesn't have a number in some of this stuff because it's just, you can't enforce half this stuff.
It's just taking out some redundancy.
Yeah,
Right.
The response to all those complaints and concerns will not change. It'll still be handled the same way, whether that ordinance is there or not. We just felt it's causing confusion to the general public thinking we could do more than we can. When they Google nuisance, that's what they get. Now, if they Google nuisance, they won't get that, but they can go to specific things like junkyards or whatever.
Banning
Still handled.
refrigerators, septics, okay.
All of the things you see on there that are covered by zoning are already within the ordinance. So
Yep.
I mean, and HHS is still going to be discussing this and taking a look at the crosswalk from, you know, the
Where it
the
goes.
items and where it goes. So there's still, I mean, I guess they could still elect themselves to have a public hearing if they
We don't have enough to really worry about for us then,
not zoning.
unless we happen, if this gets out a little bit, and if there's some blowback, then we'll know if we need one. So what does everybody else think then that we don't?
We don't utilize this ordinance. I mean, Logan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but zoning,
Just need to look at it.
no, we have our own
Yeah.
land use ordinances to enforce.
All right, well, it was a discussion is all, so what? I don't know if we want to go by consensus to tell each ask them,
I'm okay.
we're with them on it, I guess.
Yeah.
I can explain that. During HHS, I can explain the discussion here at this committee and the thought of a public hearing or not, and have them decide whether.
And like Brian said, it might open up a bigger mess than what we need. Yeah, okay. All right. Good. Board of Adjustment. Thanks, Brian.
Morning.
Morning.
I got a quick report here on the Board of Adjustment from 2024. I do have a copy of it if you guys would like. Otherwise, we can go over it here quick too.
We can't see it.
She's zooming in.
Patience, patience.
I
have that today.
Bring Binocs next time,
Yeah, I
opera
better.
glasses.
I'll do like Heidi Klum does on that show.
Is there any way to view it in full view? Not quite, no.
It'll be small if we do.
Well, do you have enough for each of us?
Yeah.
Maybe do that and save,
Still pretty small on here, but.
but at least if we can see it.
Ordinance. For the BOA ordinance, every year we give a report that's transmitted to the county board so that you know what, I mean, that's just right in our Board of Adjustment proceedings. And so that's why Logan will give the report today.
And I believe that transmittal will be through just the minutes of
Yep.
today's meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless there's any other ideas on that. But so we had 6 different meetings in 2024 for the Board of Adjustment, 8 total applications. Then I got the towns on here where they were located. 2 of those items were dealing with the Blue Rock Quarry, the public discussion part, and then I believe it was the appeal of that. The other stuff we had was a mixture. We had a couple requests for reduced shoreline setbacks. One was for a garage. One was to enclose an existing deck on a non-conforming structure. Those both were denied. We had a request for a reduced side yard setback for an attached garage. That was also denied. We had a reduced state highway setback for accessory buildings. That one was granted. The other one that was granted was the relocation of a part of a principal structure and deck within the shoreline setback and vertically expand that. And then the last one on here was a appeal of a cell tower in the town of Farmington, which was denied. So that's all we had for 2024. If there's any questions, I can answer them.
Well, I guess the reason for this, I think in the BOA was if they had a lot of the same ones that we would change an ordinance to make it work.
Mhm.
Because before we would have like 30 setbacks from a private road for a garage and stuff. Well, then it's time to change the ordinance. So that's basically the reason for this. So just the background on that, that if we get a bunch of the same thing, that we'd have to look at our ordinance, so.
Yeah, so there was no overwhelming,
it-
one thing that we
No.
heard this year, so. In the past, there's been, lot line or lot combination size and stuff like
Yeah.
that we had ran into a bunch, but this year we didn't run into anything that was a duplicate of between, every meeting or anything like that.
Sure. All right. Any questions on why it was done, kind of, or that? Okay. Good. Number 11. Mo was just gonna give us,
Yeah, not much of an update on tax deed property. We're still holding to see what's gonna happen with the, new legislative stuff. And we're still waiting to see how litigation will go with the, suit that was filed on the tax deed property of the state. So not much of an update, but that's where we stand at this time.
sure. Okay. All right. Back to Eric. You get to share
Yay.
some of your projects.
Well, I'll just give a quick introduction here while Claire is queuing up the presentation, but I want to introduce our engineer technicians, Carson Peterson and Trent Kitchenmeister. We had a busy year for construction projects in 2024, and they're going to go through some of the work that they did and things that they accomplished on the landscape for landowners.
Yeah, hello, everyone. My name is Karsten Peterson. I'm the Conservation Engineering Analyst for Land and Water Department. And as Eric mentioned, we're going to go over some of the fun projects we had in 2024. And just a quick overview, best management practices is an acronym we use a lot. Specifically, conservation BMPs are used to reduce or prevent the effects from change in land use, typically associated with agriculture or development. And our goals mainly being to prevent soil erosion and reduce runoff from point and non-point sources. So a couple of examples here. And the main reason being because we want to reduce these three primary pollutants from the runoff, being phosphorus, nitrogen, and total suspended solids. TSS is usually sediment or organic matter that ends up in the water. So phosphorus, we usually think about algae blooms, nitrogen with contamination in our groundwater, and TSS with turbidity in our surface water. As you can see, we've got a brown river from excess sediment and a green lake from excess phosphorus, so not the colors that we want to see exactly. And with agricultural BMPs, kind of the main goals are one, to keep soil and nutrients on the field where it's productive for our crop growing. And if we can't do that, we want to keep it out of our surface water. If we can't do that, we want to treat it before it hits our surface and groundwater. So the project that I want to highlight is a waste storage facility at Creekside Dairy. Creekside Dairy is owned by Ryan and Abby Johnson. There we go. In the town of Laketown, in between County Road B and Little Butternut Creek, flowing there on the bottom. That doesn't show up. In October, oh man. There we go. October 2020, Ryan Johnson reached out to me and noted that he had some problems on his farm with an older facility. Manure storage was a straight wall pit that was built in the 80s. And he sand beds his cows in his barn, and that sand ends up in the manure pit, and it built up over the years. So it was a hard packed substrate on the bottom, couldn't really be removed very easily. So he was having overflows very often. Anytime we see an overflow like this, our ordinance would say that we have to issue a notice of noncompliance. And so we issued that, and what that does is open up opportunities for cost sharing on projects like this to address this issue. So we run through some preliminary options to decide what to do on a site like this, and pretty much everything points towards a pretty expensive fix, with the topography not good for above ground storage, He would prefer to sand bed for his cows because it's best for comfort and cell count. The soils that are on site are not conducive to an earthen line facility. And to meet current standards, we need 6 months of storage. So ends up being that we're estimating that this structure might cost $250,000. So a big part of our jobs is acquiring funding to provide for these projects. And the DNR has a lot of different grants, one of which being the Targeted Runoff Grant Program. And the the small scale sites can provide up to $225,000 in cost share, which should fit the bill for this project. So applied for that in April 2021. It was awarded in January the following year, and that money would be good 2022 through 2021. So once we have that, we know we're going to get the money, have to go through a design process. So we gather some preliminary data, soil borings, topo survey, worked a lot in 2022, come up with a design that's approved by the state. It's too late in the year to construct, and actually that winter we did go back and redesign a few things to address some concerns about frozen manure that the landowners had. So a lot of time on the computer looking at spreadsheets and more spreadsheets and coming up with concrete mix designs and pump curves and a lot of fun stuff for nerds like us. So come up with a construction plan that's pretty extensive, project manual to go along with it, that's going to be able to be used to construct this exciting new project. So a little bit of a financial delay in 2023, a little hiccup, but 2024 comes around and we get to go ahead to move forward on the project and have a site showing in July where we have 4 contractors that are all very interested in the project. But when bids are due in August, only one was received, and it's a lot higher than we were hoping. Quite a bit over budget, so I worked a little magic, reached out to a couple different concrete contractors and found one that the general was willing to work with, and we reduced the project cost by over 60 grand. So got it back in the wheelhouse of affordability. So October 2nd, 2024, so 4 years after the initial conversations, actually broke ground. So these projects can take some time, but that was pretty exciting.
Point it towards, point it towards the front of the room.
Okay. So here you can see we were doing a little core trench compaction, which would be used to build our embankment on which this facility would sit against. Okay, my bad. I should be good with technology, right? And so a couple things had to happen before we could even start on the main footprint of this facility. Here you can see laying in some drainage pipe that would take clean water from above the facility and move it below, keeping away from any contaminated substances. Here we can see it's starting to take a little shape, moving lots of dirt, starting to compact our embankment, getting nice and built up. We had really good days for construction. Here you can see lots of equipment moving. Bulldozer doesn't really look like he's doing a lot there, but he's actually measuring with his GPS because I was able to put our survey files into their machine. So the bottom of that dozer blade knew exactly where it needed to be on site at all times. So a really cool technology that they made this project possible.
Never mind.
So here we've got a pretty good looking basin here that's going to be able to be built into a manure storage facility. So you can see we have some 2-to-1 side slopes on the sides there, and we have an 8-to-1 ramp coming in for vehicle access. And because we had really good sand on site, which is great for building, really good bearing capacity, but it's very porous. So if we had any problems with the concrete cracking, we would have a concern for groundwater. So what we did, we laid in a clay liner, 3-foot liner, to restrict any movement of water if there was any problems down the road. Because clay is kind of not used typically in construction, we got a pretty cheap source of it from Frederick. So didn't cost a lot for those 135 truckloads, but it took a couple days to get it all. All done, no.
Hang tight.
Yeah, well.
We had a response from the folks online that couldn't see your presentation.
Oh, okay.
Claire's fixing.
Yeah, I thought it was on the back of this.
Yeah, no. so
Yeah,
it
okay,
needs to-
yeah.
Needs to be closer to the front.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, so yeah, we got that all laid in there. Here you can see they're compacting that again. And pretty cool here, you can see that the real different color between the stuff that was brought in and the natural soil on site. The 3-foot liner there, you see a good thickness. And here we're all finished up, compacted. We had really dry weather. And a soil penetrometer there, and what's that, the measurement there is maxing out that little tool at 5 tons a square foot. So a really, really good foundation to be laying our concrete on top of. And obviously if once the moisture retained, it wouldn't be quite this strong, but we had a really good base going into this. So a couple weeks later, able to get the concrete crew there, an 18-inch grid of number 4 rebar ends up being about 2 miles worth of rebar in this structure. They ripped right through it. They moved quick on these jobs. And the next day, started bright and early and started pouring. They had a five-person crew, and they with the pump truck, they were able to move right along. We had good weather for pouring. Pretty fun days watching it all get together here. Ended up being about 300 yards of concrete total. I got nothing, I guess.
I can't even advance it back here.
Okay. Yeah, and we had really good weather throughout the whole project. Kind of the way it fell, it was later in the year than we wanted to start, but that funding did run out in 2024. And so we would have been kind of out of luck if we didn't get it done. So we had to push through, and all the contractors on the job, they had other jobs they were trying to get to. So balancing that timing was really important on this project. So you can see it's all finished up. We've got a rough finish on the sides. Part of that's a safety concern. So if you do fall down in the pit, you can actually walk back up. And it's a smooth finish on the bottom. Not as smooth as maybe some people would want to see, but it's going to be covered throughout its entirety there. So we got through most of the basin in one day. That was about as much as that crew wanted to do for one day. So next day we come back, we actually did get some rain overnight, which is really great for concrete curing and hydration. So that worked out just fine. Give it a minute here.
Your video on the next slide.
I don't think so.
It's a pretty big presentation. Fun.
It is, yeah. Okay. Yeah, too many pictures on it, I guess. But here they're finishing up.
That far for a new.
There you go.
I was thinking.
We should have split these up, I guess.
But you should be able to just click right through those.
Time for an upgrade.
But really great crews to work with the whole time. It was it was Stout Construction out of Chautauqua that ended up getting the winning bid, and they very professional. Had a lot of years of experience on that crew. They're all around in their 50s, and they knew what to do on this job, and it was really fun working with them.
What do they do around the outside then?
where it's sloped for concrete. So we ended up, the concrete mix was really light on water. So it was some heavy stuff. And that was part of the reason they didn't want to pour any more than they did that day. It was really heavy, hard to move. And that helps it stay up, be held by that rebar on the slopes. I wasn't sure it would either, but the concrete guys who a lot of years of experience there, they had the mix down pretty perfect for that type of slope. 2-to-1 is about as much as you'd ever want to do for concrete like that, but they were able to get it done.
So where that person is standing then on the outside, then do they plant grass there or something?
Yeah, and we'll, definitely in this site, pretty large, and we're late, by the time we're done, it was late in the year, planted everywhere. So I'm excited come May when it actually turns green there. So it's probably not the best looking late in the year for that, but.
Yeah.
And so we wanted that concrete to cure for at least 7 days. So in the meantime, we got our earth crew back, and here we're installing a roof runoff structure for the barn. So essentially just a French drain moving along the building to keep water away from the facility. And about a week later, we got the concrete crew back to pour the upper slab where manure would be scraped out of the barn into the facility itself. This was good. Running his laser screed here. We had slope moving down into the pit, so it worked out great to have this machine. Kid that's pulling there, he was getting yelled at the whole time. He was the young guy on the crew, and someone's got to get yelled at, I guess. So there's our finished product there at the top, or close to anyway. We did have some weather coming in at this point, so we ended up covering. We had to cover our concrete there to make sure that we didn't have any freeze up. On Halloween, we got some snow, but fortunately it warmed right back up afterwards, so we lucked out there. And here we got our curbs and walls going up, something to keep the manure contained on the slab while it's being moved from the barn to the facility, keeping it out of our drainage structures on the side and easier to push against for the operator as well. And the whole time that the new facility was being built, the cows are still there, still got a lot of manure output through this whole time. So we had to keep the old pit at least in functioning enough to hold a couple weeks worth. So when that finally was done, we spent a day and had to get all the manure out of there, applied to the fields, and get down to the bottom and demolish the structure and abandon it properly. Here we're digging through the bottom. It was very well built. There was really no leakage throughout the years, and the soil was very clean underneath. And it was kind of too bad that we had to get rid of the structure, but it really couldn't be, updated or retrofitted because it was too close to the well. So new standards, setbacks, we have to push manure storage further away from some of the water resources. So this one didn't really serve a lot of purpose anymore. And in place, you can see it's filled up a little bit, and we put a waste storage, small waste tank here to collect from the milk house. And that would collect in that tank and then be pumped out to the pit underneath the slab. And this is kind of our final day, November 5th of earthwork anyway. And on our left side there, you can kind of see it slope down to our inlet that would flow underneath the structure. And on the right side here, you can see Hank, the farm dog, that's helping me out every day, and a little grass waterway that would move water around the outside of the facility. So we don't want any flow coming in there because it's already going to collect enough water from precipitation. So you need to move all that clean water away from any contaminants. And there's a project finished up November 18th. The landowners completed the seeding, the mulching, and the fencing, which helped us save about $15,000 from the original bid. So there's a couple opportunities on this project to reduce costs, and it helped us get it done. And there is, after a couple days of rain, you can see the operator was starting to use it as well, and functioning correctly. It filled up quick to start with, but it's a structure like this, so it fills up quick at the bottom and takes forever to fill once you get up higher. Some of the big project benefits, we now have a compliant farm with better operational efficiency. They were required to get a nutrient management plan as part of this project. So all the manure that comes out of that pit now is applied systematically to their fields for better nutrients where it's needed on their fields. Increased safety. That old pit was a liability, and this new one has good safety measures to keep people, animals, anything out of it. And nutrient reductions, along with that nutrient management plan and the structures we installed, can be modeled to reduce phosphorus by close to 2,000 pounds a year, 5,000 pounds of nitrogen a year, and 51 tons of sediment a year. So pretty substantial numbers.
How do you reduce phosphorus? I don't understand, because the cows are still producing the same amount of manure. Are you
Yeah.
saying how it's being spread on the field?
Yep, nutrient management plan is a big
But
one.
you're still having that phosphorus, so I don't understand how the reduction comes in.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of ways to be done on that, but one of it is, they were required to do cover crops now on that, or I shouldn't say required, but using them. And they were also winter spreading this whole time too. So every bit that was winter spread, you got to assume is probably ending up in our water stream. Whereas now they have 6 months of storage, so that can be applied in non-frozen months. So we're hitting that field when it's actually able to receive some of those nutrients. So that's a big one right there. And that's why
Because the nutrients actually
Yeah.
aren't being reduced.
No.
They're actually, it's just depending on when and how they're being absorbed
Yep.
or applied.
Yeah, absolutely. And
That's right. We're minimizing losses because of the timing. We're not spreading in inclement weather
Sure.
in the spring,
Okay.
close to, times where we're, surface runoff and things like
Sure.
that. And nutrient management kind of enhances the ability for uptake of those nutrients because you're applying them timely
Timely when
and
they're
to a
needed.
growing crop, and they're tied up and utilized by the plants and not subject to loss.
Sure. Okay.
yeah, so, and these are models. Models are made to be wrong, but this is kind of best case scenario, and I really feel that it's going to help a lot. And this is Little Butternut Creek, not too far away. So where they were spreading in the winter was out of our water quality management area, so that it was totally able to be spread there. But it's still going to be received by this creek every year. So, yeah. And just a financial overview, this was a big bulk of our funding that we spent last year, but we did spend, $328,000 of state and federal money across 6 projects all throughout the county. So it wasn't just reserved on this project, and we had a lot of different grants that we used for 6 really good projects. So any questions?
How many you have for this year to start?
A little bit lower this year, but we probably got 4 at least lined up, five lined up. So yeah, for the trim grant, for our Balsam Lake specific, and then a little lighter. So it goes in phases where you might be heavy on design one year and heavy on installation the following year, just on the lag time for things. So, but yeah, another busy year, I'm sure.
5, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Any questions? Good.
We do have one more if we've got time.
Yeah.
Trent has a project on Long Lake that we'd like to share with you.
Oh, look at that, working perfect, man. Morning, everyone. My name's Trent Kitchenmeister. I'm the conservation for the Land and Water Department. Today, I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about the Tanglewood Trail Line Waterway project that took place here in the watershed. So a little bit of backstory on how we got here is our trim grant project areas here in the back one. So here, the Balsam Lake watershed outlined in red. If you see the red X, I don't know if I can get the pointer to work on the screen or not.
Pointer does not work on.
It does not. Okay.
There, Claire's
But
pointing it up.
the red X, yes, where she just circled, is at the bottom there on the south side of Long Lake, and that's where this project took place. And this is a 3-year grant. Currently, we are in our 3rd and final year of this project, so we're looking to get a lot more practices put in here in 2025. And this grant provides, the installation for agricultural best management practices, otherwise known as BMPs, like Carson touched on earlier, to address these resource concerns here in the Balsam Lake watershed. So a little bit of a zoomed in view here. In the top right corner, we have the Moss's house, Adam Moss and Betsy Moss, who are a part of this project. This big parcel here towards the bottom left, that would be Tom Patterson. And then the one on the right, sort of in the middle of the screen there, is Mike Nielsen. Those three landowners kind of came together to make this project happen, as well as the Long Lake Protection and Rehabilitation District, who helped cover costs for the project as well as the grant. So a little bit of an overview of this project here. Drainage area is about 147 areas, and the X here at the, by the lake here is where this gully kind of exits through into the lake. So you can follow it up through these parcels here, up the gully, and then eventually it crosses 180th Street into that agricultural field through a culvert. So there's a lot of water that comes through this area that we're trying to treat. In future slides, you'll see just what comes through these culverts and exits into the lake. So this Tangle Trail waterway system first came to our attention in 2020. As you can see in some of the pictures here, in that top left picture, we have, a lot of bare soil going through this little forest here, which is right behind Adam Moss's garage on the south side of Tanglewood Trail. And then this bottom left picture, another lot of bare soil here, and that's actually just to the left of Adam's house, which is on the north side of the road. And water just comes kind of screaming through here. It doesn't have a lot, stopping it. And eventually you can see this little delta forming here in the lake, and that's just all sediment that's come through this gully over years and eventually piling up. And actually here you can see that's actually over breaking through the water there as well. So in 2021, we got a call in the office, and this is before I started here, but we got a call saying, someone's spreading manure on the lake. As crazy as that might sound, no one's out there, but this is just all runoff and erosion that came through this gully and eventually made its way out onto the lake. If you can look out there, you can actually see a tire laying out on the ice that came through the culverts and through the gully itself. So a lot of water pushing, a lot of pressure, and taking a lot of sediment out there. Eventually in 2022, the surveying on this project started, and that was all done by Karsten. Did a great job doing the design work on that. So this is another look at runoff in 2023. You can see on the left, water's coming down through Tom Patterson's property. Eventually it'll cross underneath the road through a culvert. Again, you can see another tire. There's gonna be plenty of tires to see throughout this project. But yeah, it comes through here and eventually crosses down further. Eventually meeting this culvert that crosses underneath Tanglewood Trail. We've got another tire, common occurrence, a little red bucket, and then all this debris that's been settled out here. Eventually with enough rain and enough runoff, that's all gonna eventually make it into the lake as well. And finally, we've got this path looking towards the lake, and eventually in this left-hand picture, you can see what's, coming down through, and, eventually with enough rain, enough runoff, all that's gonna end up in the lake too. And here you can see just everything that's made it out to the lake. You can see a 6x6 post out there as well. So a lot of junk is making out there that doesn't need to get into the lake that we're trying to stop. So I got a few videos here. Some of the runoff that comes into the lake. That one will play or not. By any means, but
Slipped and fell.
Yeah.
I'd love to claim that, but unfortunately I didn't. Here we go. So July 2024, 4 years after this project was brought to our attention again, put out a bid package and received 3 bids. Paragon Excavating came in at $42,369.38. Next Trucking Excavating, $37,937.50. And then Jonas and Sons Excavating, ran by Dave Olson, came in at the lowest at $22,050. So at this point, we got landowner approval. We're going to go through with this project and get it installed as soon as we can. Got our cost share contract signed by Adam and Betsy Moss, Mike Nielsen, as well as the Long Lake Protection and Rehabilitation District, who covered the landowner's costs, which really helped make this project happen, because some of the landowners were concerned about the cost, so having that lake group come in and cover that, additional 30%, not only strengthens our relationships within the watershed with them, but, adds to the water quality as well. So here we can see our construction plan, starting up here on the left side where we can see Patterson's driveway. We've got what we'll call our first plunge pool, where the water comes down through the gully, eventually it's gonna fill up this plunge pool, allow for that sediment, those nutrients to settle out in there. And once that fills up, they'll spill through our spillway, come down through this little waterway and lined out in blue. Make it to our sediment pool. Again, allowing more sediment and those nutrients to settle out. Or it fills up that pool to a certain elevation, spills through the culvert into our last plunge pool on the north side of the road. Again, fills it up, allowing sediment to settle out, and it spills through our lined waterway there at the end. So first day of construction, fun times, taking down a lot of trees. It's always got to look ugly before it looks better some days. So August 26th through the 29th began clearing and grubbing trees. Right here we are by Tom Patterson's driveway. I believe here there were about 8 to 10 trees that had to be taken down. So a lot of wood was taken out. I had to deal with a lot of big root masses with those stumps that came out. Did a great job. The 8th through the 29th, we were able to finish, removing the debris from the plunge pool. Got the final grading set for it. And we're starting to lay this erosion control matting, and we're able to place the boulders back by the culvert to kind of strengthen and protect that side slope there. So in my mind, I was like, man, we're going to get done with this real fast, but Mother Nature always wins. Untimely rain on the night of the 29th caused some setbacks. You can see some erosion on the side slopes and at the exit here in the middle. That was our overspill. We weren't able to quite get everything done the night before, but rain came in, and luckily we had our erosion control mitigation up. We had silt fence out there, so that caught a lot of the sediment that was coming out, but we were able to fix it in the long run and make it a great project as well. So it didn't really slow anything down. We were just able to move on to the next pool. September 3rd, started clearing and grubbing up the area for the earth and sediment pool between Mike's house and Adam's garage. And Mike Nielsen, who owns the property here on this right-hand picture, I don't know where he got those big concrete blocks from, but even the excavator had some troubles lifting them up and slipping out of the jaws and out of the bucket. So a lot of work to be done here. They started clearing this area and getting it ready to be trucked out by Taylor Trucking the next day. Moved September 4th, able to start hauling out all this debris. Really start taking shape here. You can kind of see the layout of the land. That middle picture shows us working on the north side of the road by Adam's house, clearing out those trees. I think another 8 to 10 trees were taken out there to make room for this project. And on the right here, we can see that we're finally starting to construct our little basin at the bottom for where that water will store and allow for that sediment to settle out. On the 6th here, made some great progress. Really starting to take shape here on the right. We can see that we're getting our 3-to-1 slope going back up the hill. We added a lot of fill to this side. It was pretty eaten out from years and years of a runoff coming down, taking sediment away, bringing the long lake, and with that being the nutrients that came along with it, that phosphorus and nitrogen that's in the soil. September 6th, again, we're working out on the north side of the road by Adam's house. Here we got our plunge pool constructed. We're getting the grade put in. We did hit some groundwater with, the excess rain that we got this year. We were really wet in 2024, so lake level was high, so we hit some groundwater, but that wasn't too much of a concern with that, knowing that we're gonna have plenty of storage in there regardless. In the middle, Dave's employee, Adam, young 18-year-old that was just happy to be in the skid steer, tearing stuff up, did great work. Here we're creating our waterway, and that berm that you see there, that's our dissipation pool, which is the last spot where the water is gonna lose some of its velocity, allow a little bit more of that sediment and nutrients to settle out before it slowly tapers out into the lake. September 10th, really just finished the grading here. really made it look nice. They did a good job. You'll see some ruts out there. Those were removed before, the erosion control matting was set and the turf reinforcement mat, which is a really nice fibrous mat that does a good job of allowing grass to grow through it. When that grass grows through it, really makes it tough to move. Water's not going to be moving it, and it just really helps protect that soil in place. Here you can see that turf reinforcement mat that we were able to install on the 11th. Grass was seeded beforehand, and I remember looking at this and thinking, well, I don't know how the heck the grass is going to go through it, but in a few days' time, we had grass growing through it like crazy, and we were out there this spring, and it looks like a green carpet out there with all the grass that came through. It really was a great product to use. I believe this is the first time we've used this product for any project, so really happy with how that turned out. That was staked down with some earth stakes or some earth staples, but the grass will do most of the job holding that in, and it won't be moved by any water that comes through it. September 12th, really started getting some work done here. A lot of the riprap rock or trap rock was brought in and laid down on the middle sediment pool. We got the north side of the road started to go, got the erosion control matting laid down, getting the riprap down there, as you can see. And then finally, 2 weeks after all that rain, this pool finally dried out enough. We're able to get the rest of that erosion control matting down, and then we got our riprap down. So in the middle there, you can see where our spillway is out the back, and this was great to get done. We knew that the kind of the end was in sight here, and the project was kind of coming to a close. A few more things to get done. On the 16th and 17th, we completed all the riprap in the second plunge pool and began putting the riprap in place in the sediment pool. You can see that light green material, that's American Excelsior matting, just some more erosion control mitigation there. Trying to make sure we're keeping that soil in place on Adam's yard as we're allowing that grass to grow. But yeah, getting all this riprap done really made the project go fast. Finally, on the 18th, we got all of our straw and seed laid down, kind of marking the end of the project here. Just making sure that we're protecting the soil that was bare and making sure it's not going anywhere. Just again, more pictures throughout the project of getting all this, the American Excelsior mat down, the straw and seed down, really getting there. Now we're close, and more pictures closer by Adam's house just before we're getting to the lake. All strawed and seeded. And on the 19th, we considered that the project was pretty much done. Just need to get our trash grate put on the culvert. So here we are, we're taking our as-built survey so that we can then take all these elevations and GPS points, plug them into Carson's CAD system, and show a layout of how the project was expected to be built and how it was built, and if there's any changes that need to be made. Sent that off to one of the engineers at DACAP, got our approval. Project's good to go. Didn't need to make any changes, so turned out just great. More pictures of our as-built, and you can kind of see, the final look of the project as we're going through here. This is by Mike and Adam's house here.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Do the sediment pools fill up then with sediment?
They will.
Be cleaned out?
Yeah, there could be some need for some sediment to be taken out. And even throughout the first year of using this, we've seen some sediment in there, but it'll take a long time before any, clean out will be need to be done. The main concern would be more if, a tree or a tree branch or something start coming through the culverts, that stuff we'd want to clear out first, and just so it doesn't, damage our, as we'll go forward here to the next slide. This is their trash grate. So if we had a big tree come through, we wouldn't want that damaging this to stop anything. But the main concern would be like large debris. The sediment that settles out, that would take a long time before anything like that would need to be a concern.
But over time, the effectiveness of these plunge pools will diminish.
Yeah.
And it'll have to be cleaned out
Yeah.
again and to improve function again.
And that's in our operation maintenance plan that we talk with landowners after we finish this project. There is some maintenance potentially, like the cleaning out that eventually might need to happen. They're aware of that, and that's on their plate as the landowner. So that's all taken care of with that. And this is, on October 21st, we went and checked it out. That grass came up amazing. Few areas where it didn't quite grow up, like in that second picture, but like I said earlier, it looked like a green carpet out there. That grass is probably nicer than their yard prior to the project starting. So not only did they get a great project, they got a little bit nicer looking yard too. So always benefits here. Got a few videos of, you'll notice, the water coming out. I don't know if it's like, down that waterway, and here in the middle, entering that. Last one here, I think. Control and eventually makes its way into the lake. We're still gonna get some leaf matter in there from all the trees in the area. That's not quite gonna be stopped, but that big debris is what we're really stopping, and that sediment is.
Was there anything they could do, all that debris that was in the lake where it was coming above water even? That just stayed then? Okay,
Yeah, there wasn't anything dredged out of the lake.
yeah,
Obviously tires and posts and things that made their way down there over the course of time, were likely removed, but
Yeah.
we didn't do anything below the ordinary high water mark.
okay.
Yeah, and finally to finish up here, the Tanglewood final cost and pollution reduction, original bid came in at $22,050. Final invoice, because some additional rock was needed, and then another roll of that trim matting was needed, and that's not necessarily cheap either. Came out to $29,589. The grant pays for 70% of this project, so we covered $20,712.30. And thankfully, the Long Lake Protection and Rehabilitation District covered the last $8,876.70. So gave a tour to the district, their board members, and they had, glowing reviews. Joe Murray, the president, said, this is money well spent. It's gonna help our lake, and just strengthen that relationship with them. They've been great to work with. Estimated pollution reductions, 119 pounds of phosphorus per year. Nitrogen, we're looking at about 354 pounds, and sediment about 90 tons, based off of using some of the models that we looked at. So yeah, any other questions for me?
So that last spot where they've got the mat and stuff that for the grass to come through then, is that then a no-mow area? So that it,
No, so you can mow it. We recommend that you don't mow that first year, allow that grass to really come through and kind of hold down that matting. But you're just gonna need to mow a little bit higher setting. If you mow at, I don't know, maybe 2 inches high, maybe you're gonna wanna go 4 inches high the first few mowings, just so that you don't catch any of that fibrous material. Allow it to settle out, so.
Affect the mower.
Huh?
It'll kill the mower.
oh, well, sure. I'm just thinking that,
Like a rope, it'll just.
taller grass and taller weeds would be better for resistance for stuff coming in. If we've got a huge water, especially in the spring, the way the
Yeah.
water comes through or heavy rains, that would slow water into the lake as well if it was a no-mow area.
There's actually kind of a balance.
Yeah.
There with that, and in a lot of cases, our operation and maintenance plan includes periodic mowing, just to keep, the woody vegetation out of there, the trees and shrubs. And sometimes that duff layer or that taller plant material can inhibit growth of grass that you want to hold the soil in place, and can be problematic. So mowing it is actually providing a better, thicker grass stand to
Thicker
prevent
stand.
erosion.
Got it.
Mhm.
All right, thank you.
So that's all I have. Thanks a lot for listening and letting us present on this.
Thanks.
A lot of great projects that went in 2024 and more for 2025 coming up, so.
That's a good one, yeah, and that's pretty close. That's where the sign says your GPS doesn't work.
Yeah.
You get to Tanglewood, you go ahead and drive all the way. You go that way, see that sign? It says Tanglewood, but the road doesn't come out there. You gotta drive 2 miles to dead end.
Ah, okay,
That's where it is, right out here to
yeah.
the west.
Thanks-
All right.
Thanks so much for letting us present on those. Those are big projects but we really wanted to dive into some of the details and share with you, all
Yeah.
that it takes to pull those projects off.
Okay.
Well done.
Yeah. Administrative, any updates?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a couple things. Overall, we're still up on sales tax, 5.1% from 2024 at this time. Although February was down 30% from last year, March was down 7%, so full improvement, but we're still to the positive. Construction side, County Road B, and Boy from Atlas to 35. You'll start seeing work on that now mid-April. That project will start for that reconstruction of that road. We're still waiting on some more information from the fairgrounds on getting their bids out for the final plans on the grandstand. So hopefully we'll have those out in the next couple of weeks. Once we get that information back from the Fair Society. We're aware of that. Still watching the state for grants and funding and the changes with executive orders. So that's still on our radar and seeing how that's going to affect our county budget as we're in the budget season now. So that's all I have at this time.
What about, is the recycling center done now?
The recycling center, the inside work is completed. We open up bids on the new baler to go in. We have scheduled we scheduled the May 6th Public Works Public Safety meeting at 2:00 to be at the recycling center with a tour of the facility at 1:30 ahead of that meeting. So you're all welcome to come down there and see how it looks inside. If you've been down to the facility before and been inside that dark facility, you'll be very impressed on what it looks like now. So,
May 1st, 1:30.
May 6th.
May
May
6th,
6th.
1:30. And then the
outside might be done then.
as soon as the ground thaws, we'll get the outside, work completed, the, pavement down, and then, I'm not quite sure on how much is completed on the punch list. There's some siding stuff and other things that go on that one, so
Okay.
let's get in there, very close.
Who's gonna have cookies and coffee for everybody too?
Yeah.
Right. Dairy Queen.
Ice cream cake.
Something to eat inside the recycling.
Okay. Sarah, you're update.
I just have a couple quick things today. Brent Cisco has sent the bid documents and advertising for the timber sales. They started running today, April 2nd, and they'll run again next week on April 9th. And then that public bid opening will be on May 6th as well. It's a popular day at 1 p.m. in the North Conference Room. And the committee is always welcome to attend if they'd like. Then that approval of the timber sales will be presented to you all at that May 7th meeting. So that's on your work plan as well. He and Paul are busy establishing timber sales before leaf out. And he says they have a couple hundred acres close to being completed so far, all of which will be advertised then in 2026. So they're going through their process. There also was a question at general government about the zoning technician with the focus on compliance, where that sits. If you remember when we talked about that position, it was going to sustain itself with revenues and things. And so that simple model had initially showed the first year being about $75,000 in revenue. He's about 87% of that at 65,000 for that first year, just a titch over. Issued over 230 permits. But I think the real story is, over 150 complaints received and 103 of those were resolved. And so that's those 103 resolved complaints is what we don't have an exact dollar amount on. So I guess that's something I will draw the attention to when I present to the General Government Committee on that topic. Don, is it next week, right? Don, next week or general government, what did I say?
Yes.
Okay. And we also have the grant letter, speaking of staffing grants. Chairman O'Connell, you'll be asked to sign our SEG innovation grant letter of support today. And Eric, did you want to say anything on that?
Again, Chair O'Connell, approached him earlier and signed it, but this is a continuation of our groundwater, watershed groundwater study and sampling that we do. And every year, along with our staffing grant, this SEG innovation grant gets sent off, and those are the funds from DADCAP that provide us the funding to do those groundwater pest initiatives. So Chair O'Connell signed a letter of support, and I will include that in with the grant application, and hopefully we receive funding again for that project.
Which watersheds are you doing?
Oh, good question. Bone Lake. And Bone Lake is our number 12 ranked watershed, priority watershed within our land and water plan. And then number 13 ranked, that's Sucker Creek Clam River, so
Okay.
northeast. And there's gonna be a couple other smaller portions of watersheds included this year because, you know, well, Sucker Creek especially is, you know, not as populated as some of the others. So we'll sprinkle in a couple of surrounding watersheds to try and, you know, boost our volunteers to.
So we're at 13, what do we got, 43?
Yep, we're chipping away at them.
Okay.
Yeah. So we might have enough room to add 2 or 3 more watersheds there, because there's a couple of portions of watersheds in those areas that we can add into this.
Sure. Okay.
And just a couple more things. We do have some applications for some zoning district changes that have come through. There was a consideration for a potential second meeting this month. Just level of service wise, so those folks don't have to wait 8 weeks to process their district changes. I don't know, Chair, what you're thinking about that. If we were going to meet the class 2 notice, it couldn't be the third Wednesday of the month.
There's 5.
Yeah, it would have to be the
So we
fourth
can
one,
do
so that would be April 23rd, Wednesday, April 23rd. Logan, have we received anything other than those 3?
No.
It just seems like there might be, start to really be a backup. That's the reason why I think this committee used to meet several times a month anyway, but it's in order to process.
Just rezonings, no, but they have CUPs with them too.
Well, yeah, but those would be at one of them has a CUP with it.
With it.
Yeah, so it would need to go through the committee and then the county board and then this conditional use permit.
That's
So
conditional.
I just wanted to mention that is on the docket if the committee is so inclined to meet on the 23rd.
Just a question on that. Then we have to go to the county board after we approve them, right? So it really wouldn't matter because you're still not gonna hit the April
County board meeting.
county board.
Yeah, the only,
Board.
yeah, I certainly appreciate that. The only thing that would really matter is if we start to really get bogged down on May 7th with other ordinance and changes and things.
That was the only thing. If we,
That's the biggest concern I think we have at staff.
so we could tentatively, well, if we set it up for that, then if there's any other business that we could put in.
Yeah,
So that, I mean, if we can keep it down to maybe before 11, when everybody wants to leave, we'll be all right.
It's the 23rd.
well, I mean, I guess when we go through the work plan, you guys can verify what you want to do as far as.
It has to be on there because we'll have, well, we don't know if the stuff is back from the DNR, probably not.
I got an email last week that they were up in line, so they're currently reviewing it. So I think they had 7 before us. Now they're
Okay.
up, so.
Yeah, and then the final thing, if you meet on the 23rd, I know Tim Anderson mentioned the LiDAR viewer that we have is now up and running, and it's beautiful, and it might be an opportunity to kind of
Show us how to run it. Show us how to use it.
kind of a quick tutorial on that. I mean,
Sure.
I know he went through Beacon, but the that LiDAR viewer is
That's pretty wild. Yeah.
come a long way. So it's really interesting. That's all I have unless there's other questions for me.
I've got, Logan, when you said we're number 7, so are those ones that are before us, are they doing preliminary reviews too? Or is it, I'm trying to understand the difference between a preliminary review and a real review. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I didn't ask if those were preliminary or, after
Or
the
final.
public hearing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We just, they do them in order, they receive them, and she said we were 7 ahead of us, but they are working on ours right now, so.
But they understand that it's gonna come back here and we can still make changes to it.
Yeah, I believe, yep.
Okay.
Yes. And then I guess one final thing, I'm sorry. We have some exciting news in the department. Eric, share.
Okay. Number of weeks ago, Nicole Schmid moved up to Veteran Services Office as their benefits specialist. I'm happy to report that we have hired Samantha Wasberg for our new land info, land and water administrative assistant, and she starts tomorrow.
Oh,
We're
so you covered it.
yeah, we're covered it, and we're very appreciative of that because it's a busy time of year with tree sale and document processing and things like that, and she'll be a huge help through the spring
Is
season.
she internal or was she?
No,
Nope, she wasn't.
internal.
Okay.
Yep. And quick turnaround time. Happy to hear that she can start tomorrow. So.
Nicole will help her break her in. Possibly.
Yes.
Trainer?
There's time, but it's comforting to have her still in the building.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Okay,
that's it for me, unless there's any other question.
I think we're good there. Let's, so for our next agenda, we might as well plan that, huh?
Okay,
I think so, to move those things through, don't you think?
On the 23rd. Okay.
Madam Clerk? Okay. All right, we will notice those.
If there's anything else,
Yes, and we'll take care of any other business that we need to then.
sure. They keep the next one's open, okay? Is it for me?
May 7th.
That one, so the April. Tax deed is off, BOA is off. Then we just have, if any of the zoning stuff comes back, we can either decide to review it then or not,
Sounds great.
you know.
Yep.
Then we should be all right.
All
And the
right,
rest, yeah. So that's at least on our work plan. We'll be all right.
yep. Good, thank you.
All right.
The only litigation update I have, nothing on our, we're still waiting for the, for that tax deed lawsuit across the state. That has been removed to federal court, so it's no longer down in circuit court it was in, but it's in federal court now. That's the only real status they're working on, challenging anything and everything they can.
Yeah, I think so.
Ultimately, the county is going to be responsible for any potential. If we are found to be liable for anything, we're responsible for whatever we allegedly did. But in my research, the number should be relatively small for the county, if even anything. So it's not, it's not gonna be a huge impact. Other counties continue to sell property since 2020. We haven't taken anything since 2020. So
Yeah, so we covered ourselves.
very minimal impact.
Yeah. All right.
I think that's it. We haven't been sued for anything else. I think that's it.
Yet this week? No.
Not this week.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second's all over. Wherever you pick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good.
We'll see you on the 23rd, if not before.